Aaron McCaleb. I came down here with Jason Morton at CZ Firearms. He invited me to go on this Texas hunt. When I knew we were coming to Southwest Texas, I jumped at the opportunity. There's some really good deer down here if you can catch them right. So we packed up and came down. I actually know Josh and Jamie from the hunting and fishing industry. And I was down here when they first got the ranch and kind of helped them. I was a little bit of a part of it when they were setting it up and getting in the feeders, and really they just took it over and they started from scratch. And that was probably about 4 years ago. And now to see the hard work that they've put into the ranch, with the support of their sponsors and other folks down here, it's really starting to pay off. They got a lot older class of deer and a lot more of them, and they obviously know the lay of the land really well and have done a really good job in really a short period of time, and really making this ranch a top quality hunting operation. Well, you know, when we first showed up and having the opportunity to hunt down here mid-December, we're thinking, you know, pre-rut or right out rut. It's gonna be cold, and these are just like, you know, we could pick these any days that we wanted to come to in the entire fall. We said, look, we want to come basically second or third week of December. And we got down here, and of course, you know, the deer always have other plans, and Mother Nature always has a little, you know, a little something up her sleeve. And it got a little warmer than what we expected, and the deer, they just were not cooperating. I think the first couple of sits that we had, we saw some activity, maybe a lot of does or a couple small bucks, but not the deer that we were looking for. And Josh, you know, is actively looking at trail cameras, doing a lot of just spotting and glassing, you know, just driving up from a high point looking for deer. And he kind of got them by, I guess, our second or third day, kind of got them pinned down. And narrowed down to where the more mature bucks were. So it took a couple days to find where the deer, or at least the older deer, were located. But once we did, you know, within a day of us saying, okay, hey, let's move to this other location on the ranch, got a couple stand locations, found this nice buck one evening, and the plan worked out really good. So on our evening hunt, when we kind of felt like that we were in a location where more bucks were coming out, sure as the world, we said as soon as we got in our stand or in the blind that afternoon, I noticed a couple small bucks coming out, and we were getting word from other hunters on the ranch that the mature bucks, or almost all the bucks, but especially mature deer, they would just kind of stick their head out of the brush. You know, they're looking at feeders, looking at, you know, big open grazing areas, things like that. Checking out for does or other bucks, maybe to, you know, they're territorial right now if they wanted to fight with or something like that. And that's exactly what was happening on ours. We noticed that the smaller bucks that were in front of us were really skittish. And I had the feeling that there's maybe maybe some bigger deer around that were kind of bullying around the feeder and stuff like that. Happened to look up behind the feeder, and just to the right of the feeder, I saw a nice 10-pointer standing there. He kind of could see him coming through the brush, and then he stood there. He stood there for probably about 10 minutes, maybe.
He might be an 11, it's hard to tell. I can't see his right side very well, or his left side. There's another buck. It's that little 8 coming back out. That's what that 10 was watching, yeah.
And when another smaller buck came out, he jumped into kind of our area where we thought we may be able to get a shot just to run that small buck off. And as soon as he did, he whirled around and jumped right back into the brush. But we felt like that, you know, we didn't upset that deer. He wasn't spooked. That was just a kind of deer behavior. So we decided to sit that same spot the next morning and happened to see that buck in the next morning sit. As soon as the light came up, I could see some smaller bucks around the feeder. Saw some of the same bucks we saw the night before, a couple small 8s and a couple spikes. And then I caught a glimpse out of my eye down a long shooting lane or just open corridor of just grass between the brush. And I saw a really nice buck. Just a glimpse of him cross probably 400 yards away from us. And then a couple minutes later, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I noticed him again crossing back that same large you know, grass area back into some brush that kind of led to a shooting lane into where the feeders were set up. And just had the hunch that he was just kind of taking his time, working his way to, you know, to where those feeders were, maybe looking for some does or something like that. And sure as the world, in a couple minutes, yeah, he stepped out where some of the other bucks were, kind of ran them off a little bit, and presented us with a pretty nice shot. August and I came out last night, hunted this stand. This is called the front pasture stand. We saw quite a lot of small bucks, and then this buck came in last night, and we were trying to size him up, see if he was a mature deer. And by the time we decided to shoot him, he kind of jumped into a shooting lane and jumped back out in about 2 seconds, so we didn't really have much of a chance. You could probably see that on the footage. And then this morning, Alyssa and I were in here and saw, this is basically the same small bucks, and this buck crossed probably 400 yards up one of the shooting lanes, kind of zigzagged back across and came in here to run these smaller bucks off. We noticed that the small bucks were really skittish, and we figured that maybe a bigger buck or two was in here kind of bullying them around. So I think it was one of them was at least this guy. He came in probably around 7 o'clock this morning, and we got a good shot on him. He didn't go very far, so it was a very successful hunt. We had a very short window to hunt, basically a 3 or 4 day hunt. So I don't say the pressure's on, but normally when you have a small time to hunt, you try to shoot the first mature deer that we saw, and it just happened this was just a really great buck. I'm pretty excited to get him. But more important than just coming down here and not getting a nice buck, you know, Josh and Jamie are really good friends of mine, and think a lot of them. And it was kind of like old camp times, just couldn't come back. I haven't hunted with them maybe about 3 or 4 years, so having the opportunity to come back and be able to hunt with those guys and share camp with them was just special, and I really appreciate that, and I feel real fortunate just to be able to come and hunt with them.